When I was around 12 years old, I lived in a house with a layout that became all too familiar. My room was situated at the beginning of a long hallway, while my parents' room was at the very end. My younger sister's room was in the middle of this hallway, and it had a distinct feature that set it apart: a folding door. This door was unlike any other in the house. It was made of slatted wood that creaked with the slightest touch. As siblings, my sister and I had our share of playful interactions. One of my favorite pranks was to mess with her folding door. Sometimes I'd push it open and close just to annoy her, or make a bit of noise to get a reaction. It was a harmless part of our sibling rivalry, something we both found amusing. Little did I know, this small act would soon become part of something much more unsettling. One night, I was deep in sleep, wrapped in a pleasant dream that I can't quite recall. The dream was comforting and serene, a perfect escape from reality. But then, something strange began to intrude on this peaceful slumber. I started to hear a female voice, soft at first, but growing steadily louder. The voice was repeating the name, Derek, over and over. It wasn't clear or distinct, just a hauntingly insistent murmur that seemed to pierce through the dream. The voice grew louder and more urgent, its intensity increasing until it shattered the calm of my sleep. The sudden intrusion was so jarring that it pulled me abruptly awake, leaving me disoriented and alarmed. I woke up with a start, my heart racing as I realized the eerie voice was coming from my sister's room. It was still dark, and my room felt colder than usual. Groggily, I called out to her, "Anna, I'm in my room." Her voice, trembling and filled with urgency, responded, "Then come here." Despite my fear, I knew I had to check on her. With every nerve in my body screaming to stay put, I forced myself to get out of bed. My legs felt like lead as I slowly made my way to her room. The hallway was dimly lit by the faint glow from the nightlight, and every creak of the floorboards seemed amplified in the stillness of the night. I tried to steady my racing thoughts, gathering all the courage I had at 12 years old, as I approached her door to see what was going on. As I opened my bedroom door, the old wooden floorboards groaned under my feet. Suddenly, I heard a rapid, unsettling noise on the floor, like someone was sprinting down the hallway. The sound grew louder and closer, and my heart pounded with each step I took. Just then, a shadowy figure darted past me, moving so quickly that it was just a blur. The sudden, ghostly apparition filled me with a bone-chilling fear. I stumbled and fell to the floor in my own room, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The commotion woke my father, and he came rushing to my door, his face etched with concern. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice groggy with sleep. I tried to explain what I'd seen and heard, but my words were jumbled and shaky. I told my father everything, how I'd heard the voice, the shadowy figure, and the frightening noise in the hallway. He listened with a concerned expression but seemed skeptical. He reassured me that it was probably just a bad dream or my imagination. He didn't recall hearing anything unusual during the night. As he tried to calm me down, he seemed distracted, walking around the house as if searching for something. That night, my sister ended up sleeping with my mother, clearly shaken by the events. My father didn't think much of it. He assumed it was normal for her to end up in his room from time to time. The next morning, I spoke to my sister about what happened. She revealed that she had heard someone messing with her door and making an sound. She had thought it was me playing one of my usual pranks. Hearing her account left me even more unsettled, as it matched the strange occurrences from the night before. The whole incident left me with an uneasy feeling that never fully went away. The lack of a clear explanation, combined with the eerie memory of that night, continued to haunt me. The unsettling atmosphere and the mystery of what really happened that night stayed with me, lingering long after the shadows had faded.
When I was a kid, my father, siblings, and I moved into an old, creaky house that felt heavy with history. From the moment we stepped inside, I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that clung to me. The house had a peculiar vibe, like it was hiding secrets within its walls. My father mentioned that the previous owner, an elderly woman, had been laid out for her wake right in the living room. Just knowing that made the atmosphere even more oppressive. The living room was dimly lit, with old-fashioned furniture that seemed to whisper tales of the past. But the eeriest part of the house was the bedroom that had once belonged to the deceased woman. It felt colder than the rest of the house, and the air seemed thicker, almost suffocating. Despite my efforts to ignore it, I couldn't help but feel that we weren't alone in that house. My sister was the first to sleep in the bedroom that had belonged to the deceased woman. Almost immediately, she started having frequent nightmares. Every night, she would wake up screaming, her face pale with terror. She described dreams of a shadowy figure standing at the foot of her bed, watching her. At first, I didn't believe her. I thought she was just being dramatic, letting the eerie atmosphere of the house get to her. To prove my point, I suggested we switch rooms. I was confident that I could sleep there without any problems. After all, I didn't believe in ghosts or haunted houses. I moved into the room, sure that I would have a peaceful night's sleep and prove that it was all in her head. Little did I know, I was in for a horrifying surprise. One afternoon, feeling particularly tired, I decided to take a nap in the haunted bedroom. I stretched out on the bed, pulled the blanket over me, and quickly drifted off to sleep. Not long after, I woke up and found myself unable to move. I was completely paralyzed. Panic surged through me as I realized what was happening. I was experiencing sleep paralysis. Despite being under the blanket, I felt an intense, unnatural cold enveloping me, seeping into my bones. Then, to my horror, I felt a light touch on my back, as if someone was gently brushing their fingers against me. The sensation was unmistakable and sent a jolt of fear through my paralyzed body. I tried to scream, to move, but my body wouldn't respond. All I could do was lie there, helpless, as the cold touch lingered. In the midst of my terror, I managed to turn my head just enough to see who, or what, was beside me. There, standing at the edge of my bed, was a woman in a black dress and a veil that obscured her face. The veil was ethereal, almost floating, and her presence was chilling. I couldn't see her features, just the dark silhouette and the veil that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. The sight filled me with an overwhelming dread. My heart pounded in my chest, and every instinct screamed at me to escape. I fought desperately against the paralysis, my body feeling as if it were weighed down by an invisible force. It felt like an eternity before I finally managed to break free, gasping for breath as I looked around to find the woman was gone. The fear of what I had seen lingered long after I managed to move. Shaking with fear, I ran straight to my sister and told her everything I had seen, the woman in the black dress and veil. Her eyes widened in terror as she listened. To my shock, she confirmed that she had seen the same apparition in her nightmares. She described the woman's appearance in the exact same way I had. That confirmation sent a fresh wave of dread through me. From that day on, I avoided the room completely. I never slept there again, and I avoided even passing by it whenever I could. The atmosphere around that room was always heavy and unsettling, and it felt like the eerie energy seeped out whenever I approached. The room remained a source of unease, a reminder of the encounter I had hoped was just a bad dream. I still hope that the spirit understands I never intended to disturb her and that she can find peace. I wish she is now resting quietly, far from the nightmares that haunted us both.